North and South India are like two different worlds. They have different languages, different food, different cultures, and very different economies. In this video, I'm going to break down just how different these two parts of the same country are from each other. To understand why North and South India are so different, you have to start with the geography, because the land itself created two completely different worlds. The North is home to the Indo-Gangetic Plain, one of the most fertile regions on Earth. It's fed by major rivers like the Indus and Ganges. And if you look at the population map of India, it basically overlaps the river map. 50% of India lives above this line alone, and the Himalayas are a huge reason for this. They act as a climate wall, blocking cold Central Asian winds in the winter and trapping monsoon moisture in the summer. North India gets extreme seasons, while the south stays warm year-round. And the Himalayas also controlled who came to India. Invasions, the Silk Road, and centuries of culture exchange all flow through the northern mountain passes, bringing Persian, Central Asian, and Mughal influences. The south is a completely different story. It sits on a tropical peninsula surrounded by ocean, with the western and eastern Ghats, mountain ranges running down each coast, giving it even more natural isolation. Therefore, the Himalayas shape the north, while the ocean shaped the south. While the north became a crossroads of cultures and empires, the south preserved its Dravidian roots for thousands of years, one of the oldest continuous civilizations on Earth. And that cultural divide between North and South India really shows up with language. In North India, most languages come from the same family, Indo-European. Languages like Hindi, Bengali, and Punjabi are all actually related to English. But in the south, it's completely different. Languages like Tamil, Telugu, and Kannada come from a totally separate ancient language family, Dravidian. And what's crazy is Tamil's over 2,000 years old, older than Latin, and it's still spoken by over 80 million people today. Which means you could take someone from North and South India and they might not understand each other at all. And this language divide is political too. In parts of South India, there's a strong resistance to Hindi being pushed as the national language. Their languages are thousands of years old, completely unrelated to Hindi, and pushing one language feels like saying theirs matters less. Hindi and English are the official languages of the Indian government, but the constitution recognizes 22 regional languages. The food tells the same story of two different worlds, and North and South Indian food couldn't be more different too. North India food is heavy and wheat-based with thick curries and flatbread. You have food like butter chicken, naan, and roti. But head south and everything changes. Way more lentils and way more coconut. South Indian food is lighter and way more tangy, and it's often served on a banana leaf, and the most famous dish being the dosa. North India also has way more vegetarians compared to the south, and if you like fish, head to the northeast. And all of India likes chai, but if you like coffee, head to the south. North India became a crossroads of religions with Hinduism, Islam, and Sikhism. Centuries of invasion and empire brought layer after layer of outside influence. The state of Punjab is home to a huge Sikh population and the Golden Temple, the holiest site in Sikhism. While the south developed more internally, more continuous Hindu traditions with influences coming by sea rather than by land. In South India, you'll find more Christians, especially in Kerala, which has had Christian communities since the 1st century. North India absorbed waves of outside influence, while the south evolved more from within. But in the south, you'll find massive gateway towers called ghaparons covered in hundreds of carved figures. For example, check out the famous Manakashi temple in Madurai. Even the music is different. Southern India had Carnatic music, which stayed mostly untouched by outside influences. Northern music, like Hindustani, was shaped by centuries of Mughal rule. They have different instruments too. You have the tabla and sitar in the north, while you have the minarangam and gadam in the south. Festivals differ between the regions too. Holi, the festival of colors, is way bigger in the north. But then you have the Am, which is a festival that's celebrated more in the south. And economically, North and South India couldn't be more different too. Check out the GDP. North India produces $1.7 trillion, while the south produces over $2 trillion. South India has higher literacy rates, more people enrolled in technical courses, and lower rates of unemployment. Southern India is generally more developed and industrialized. Cities like Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad are major tech and manufacturing hubs. And if you want to launch a startup, you probably want to be in Bangalore. Bangalore has around 50 unicorns, which are $1 billion startups, and it has by far the most in the country. Bangalore alone has more tech startups than European countries. It hosts 80% of global IT companies, 34% of India's IT exports, and it's home to the Indian Space Research Organization. But in North India, wealth is much more uneven. You have massive cities like Delhi, but also some of the poorest states in the country like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. And it's not just GDP, women in South India are also far more likely to be in the workforce. Also, the gender gap in literacy rates is far higher in the north. But while the south has more wealth, the north has way more political power. The north is home to India's capital, New Delhi, and it has a high representation in the parliament. Why is this? Well, North India has way more people. You can see this reflected in India's population map, and in India, more people equals more seats, which means more power. The north is also having way more babies. All of India's high fertility rates are in the north. But here's where it gets interesting and kind of controversial. Southern states controlled population growth, invested in tech and education, and became richer. But because they have fewer people, they have less political influence. But it gets worse. Southern states generate more tax revenue, but it gets redistributed to poorer poorer northern states. So the south is richer, has less political power, and ends up subsidizing the north. So in a way, southern India is kind of being penalized for their success. So India's economic future might shift south even if political power doesn't follow. The tension where wealth is created and where power is held is one of the biggest questions that India will face in the coming decades. If you're a first-time traveler and you want to see the typical India that you've seen in movies, go to the north. You've got the Taj Mahal, the deserts of Rajasthan, the Himalayas, Varanasi, the holy city of Hinduism, and the Dalai Lama temple. But if you're looking for a more relaxed holiday, go to South India. You have the backwaters of Kerala, the beaches of Goa, the French colonial city of Pondicherry, the ancient ruins of Hampi, and the massive temple complexes in Madurai. And the pace of life in general is completely different between the two regions. North India is chaotic and faster paced, while the South is more laid back. So when people say India is like one thing, they're only getting half the picture. Because this is a country where the Himalayas and the ocean built two completely different worlds. They have different languages, cultures, and economies, but together they're India. I'm Jake Explains, and I cover rising countries like India and countries that aren't doing so well, so make sure you follow for more knowledge on how the world's changing.